everybody, and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. I think it's time on this channel we have a bit of positivity. We've had the negativity, we've had the transfer window now, we've had the negative shows. I think it's time we change our tune a little. What do you all think? I think it's time we do. So we have got some more positive stories to get into today. Obviously, naturally, there will be a balance to everything we do, like we always do on this channel, but we have got some more positive news to get into today. Finally, some positive news, eh? Sort of the end of the transfer, discussion really, going into now the matches and of course a few other bits as well. Obviously, we still will cover a bit of transfer windows because a few bits that I finally want to get ticked off. But for the most part, the show is going to be covering injury updates regarding Rodon and Gudmundsson. Really positive news there. We're also going to talk about Leeds United finally getting a set-piece coach. Getting. It's about time, Leeds. It's about time. We've bought all these players. Yes, we haven't got a set-piece taker, but at least now we've got a set-piece coach. Finally, why did we didn't employ one last year? Why the club decided we don't need one last year? We don't need a set-piece coach when we're getting tons of set-pieces in the Championship. I will never know, but we finally got one. We finally got one. It's like not having a manager. John Pepper says Leeds in the comments. That's what I'm thinking, John. That's what I'm feeling. As I said, positive stream. Obviously, as I said, there's going to be balance, and I can't be positive all the time because I do not want to be a happy clapper. But more positivity today, I think. Yeah, and then we're also going to get on to a bit of transfer reflections as well. Because there's a few bits I still want to pick up regarding that as well when I've looked into it in more detail. Because we're doing a bit later today, I've had a lot longer to have a look at what I'm saying and sort of dig it down into more detail as well. So that's what we're going to be doing as well. And also, we're going to be talking a bit about formations for Leeds United right now. What is the best formation? Because I've seen a lot of conversation about a 5-back. We're going to talk about that. Don't really want a 5-back, if I'm being totally honest. That is a bit of a sort of jump ahead, but that's where I'm at with it. But we will talk about that. We're also going to talk about what is Leeds United's best 11 as well, because I've got it built, which I'm going to show in another window later when we get onto that part. So yeah, bit of a blockbuster show today. But as I said, but a bit more positivity to get into as well today, which is fantastic. Ollie says, set-piece coach, not to make it past the front post on a corner. Well, you're bringing the negativity, Oliver. We do not want negativity. As I said, more positivity needed. No, I'm joking. But yeah, you're probably right. Who is the set-piece coach? We're not sure yet, John. Yeah, the situation with the set-piece coach is that Graham Smith said this morning that there is going to be a set-piece coach coming in, which, as I said, about time. That's what the set-piece coach is there to for, so we can make it past the front post, Holly. Yep, there you are. Exactly right. But yeah, shall we get on to the first news? And the news of today is around, and the title of the video is about Rodon and Gudmundsson, so probably best to actually talk about them. Basically, the update is that Rodon obviously picked up a concussion. I don't know if this is in training or in the previous game. However, he will miss international duty, but should still be okay for Fulham. Fantastic news, eh? Doesn't have to go to the training camp with Wales, who obviously won today, 1-0, I believe, against Kazakhstan, where Harry Wilson did get an assist. Let's not talk about it. Positivity. No, I am joking, the positivity. I don't want to be, what's it called? Toxically positive. I do not want to be that either. But yeah, he's not going to with Wales anymore. Perfect scenario, really. We don't really want him going away with duty. So coming back, being sort of wrapped in a hot towel by Leeds United until ready for the Fulham game is perfect. And also we can still work on drills. Obviously, you wouldn't expect him to head in any balls with him having a concussion. But yeah, there's what we can do on the training pitch, which is brilliant. We want the least amount of people going to international break as humanly possible. Gudmundsson as well will be going with the international break. Obviously, he did come off with an injury, we thought, in the Newcastle game. And it turns out his injury is not that serious, which is fantastic news. And of course, that means that he will be able to feature of course, in the game for Leeds United against Fulham. He's going away with Sweden, though, of course, his nation. So that we'll have to see how it develops there. Obviously, they said they're going to assess him, but it looks like he's going to be all good to go. Just my opinion, buddy, why not try get Paraag on the right wing? He's our best attacking player. We'll get into talk about that. I don't think Paraag on the right wing's the one, though. I've seen this online as well. I've also seen 5-backs online as well, which, again, not too convinced on personally. I'm sure positivity won't make you past the front post, says Ollie. Cheers. He's trying to bring down the mood. It's horrendous. Jack says, evening, Scott. Match on together. Evening, Jack. I hope you are doing well, sir. I hope you're doing very well. But yeah, then we've obviously got the update, as I said, with the set-piece coach, which is that Leeds United are getting one. There's not much more to it. We don't know who it is yet. We'll have a look into that when it's appointed, but that is also fantastic news. Also, a bit more news as well. Josh Brownhill, I know we had a lot of Josh Brownhill sympathisers in the chat. Well, I'm afraid, sympathisers, he is going to Saudi. He's off to Al-Shabaab, I think, whoever they are. So if you are still a Josh Brownhill sympathiser, go and watch him for Al-Shabaab. That's what my recommendation is to you. Obviously, for me, I never really wanted him at Leeds. In truth, 100 grand a week is the salary he's took at Al-Shabaab. So, you know, that's what obviously would have wanted at Leeds United, or maybe a bit less, but still quite a lot. Mark says, evening to you, Mark, as well. And of course, naturally, like we do with these shows, I will read out the comments as we go through the show as well. So pop your comments in, and then we'll go through, because especially later in the show, when we get onto formations and we get onto tactics and all that sort of stuff, your guys' support will be fantastic. We won't know what the best 11 are yet. It's too early in the season. I personally think we have a very strong squad. I also rate Pro as our best striker, and he will prove it during this season. That's controversial. I slightly disagree. PSF, I slightly disagree with that. Not PSR, PSF. I don't. Obviously, it's too early to judge our whole starting 11. I get that, but that's the whole point of the show. We're going to see, from my opinion, from what we've seen so far, what is the best team and what formation should that be in as well. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is something that I was going to get onto later, but I think it's important to know, is that there's been a lot of talk online in the last few days about the transfer window, of course, and negatively reviewing the transfer window, which is completely understandable. But when I was looking into when Farke's played a 5-back before, which people have mentioned, let me just read you the Norwich squad that he had. Now, this is different to what, obviously, the 5-back formation, so I'm not ruining anything going forward. But this is what I mean about the negativity about the transfer window. Is it as bad as we thought? And people have said Farke's got the same thing going on as he had with Norwich. That is what people have mentioned on my show, online. The narrative is that he wasn't back with Norwich and he hasn't been back with Leeds. This was his starting 11 when they lost 7-0 to Chelsea and he played a 5-back. You ready? Tim Krul in goal. Max Aarons at right wing back. All right, okay. Kabak, who we know was awful. He was terrible at Liverpool, came from Schalke, and then terrible at Norwich. Then they had Grant Hanley in the middle of a back three. Ben Gibson, awful defenders, all of them. Then they had Giannoulis at left wing back. Okay, he was okay, but still nowhere near Premier League level. A midfield three of McLean, Norman, Lees-Malou, and then up front, Pookie and Sargent. That was their team. And this isn't Sargent now, who's actually smashing goals in the Championship. This was a donkey Sargent. This was terrible Sargent. That was their starting 11. Now, that is completely different to the Leeds United sphere. I am not saying that we've got the greatest squad in the world. That is not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying, in comparison to what he did at Norwich, this is miles better. I mean, for me, Perry's a better goalkeeper. I think Bogle's a better wing-back than Max Aarons. I think Ben Gibson, I think all our centre-backs are probably better than Ben Gibson, and with Grant Hanley. Like, this is an awful team. Like, and Leeds United is not that bad. We're miles stronger. In fact, I would argue, potentially, other than Teemu Pukki, I don't think there's another player that we would get in. And I don't even think Pukki starts in that team. I'd put him in that system. If I had to do a combined 11, I'd have Okafor and DCL up front. That would be my two strikers. So let's not, like, we weren't back to the transfer window, and I'm not making this as a positive. Like, it was a 5 out of 10 window for me. That is the truth of the matter. However, in the comparisons to Norwich are madness. Like, there isn't one player for me that will get in that we've currently got in our team. Name one. Would you put McLean in? Gosh, you wouldn't. He's Stack, Tanaka, and Ampadu. No chance that McLean gets in. We are stronger now than we were last time we was in the Premier League. 100%. I think. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the squad's even better than we were last time in the Premier League. The only thing I would say to counteract all this, obviously, is that I do think, especially the mid-table teams, not as much the top, because I think they were still really strong teams, but I think the mid-table teams in the Premier League now, compared to last time we were in the top flight, of course, are a lot better. Like your likes of Bournemouths and Brightons and all these teams are so much better now than they were sort of 2 or 3 years ago, because obviously they've had that continuation of money coming through by being in the Premier League, where the Premier League team's getting richer and richer and richer. So that is something to bear in mind. But the comparisons to the Leeds squad right now compared to that Norwich squad are just nonsense. It's absolutely nonsensical. There's not a single player that I would put in a combined 11. So that's something to mention. And actually, that moves me on to the transfer window as a whole, because I've got a few bits on it to look at. My whole thing is, I've looked at this today in so much detail, people. I honestly have. I've looked at it and looked at it and looked at it. And as we know, Leeds United started the transfer window brilliantly. I think we'd made 7 signings by June the 26th, I believe, something like that. No, July the 26th, it was something like that. And then it was obviously a poor from then on, as we know. It was probably a 7, 8 out of 10 window, and then probably a 2 or 3 in the last sort of month or so, just over a month, maybe 2 months. But one thing to bear in mind with this is it actually as bad as we think? Really? Like, is it actually as bad? Like, I'm looking at the squad today and I'm thinking, all right, let me get the squad up. Like, this is the team that I think we're going to rock. Let me see if I can put it up. Is it going to come up? Let me just move this round. Can you see this? Admittedly, it says match reaction at the bottom. Ignore that bit. But is this as bad? Is this as bad as we think? Like, we've got Perry in goal, Bogle at right back. We've got Biol and Rodon at the back. Left back, we've got Gudmundsson. 2 holders, in my opinion, if we're going to play a 4-2-3-1, which I don't think we will obviously play. I think we're going to play a 4-3-3 flat as such, or maybe sort of with 1 pivot and 2 8s. But we've got Stack, Tanaka, and Ampadu as a midfield 3. We've got Nonto on one side, Okafor on the other, and Calvert up front. Is that actually that bad? And I was thinking today, why it's not, for me, when I look back at it, I'm not sure it is that awful, that team. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. Maybe you disagree with me in the comments below, but I'm looking at that side and thinking, it's not actually that awful. Yes, I think we're missing a right winger. But besides that, I don't mind the midfield 3. I think the midfield 3's sorted. I think Okafor, we'll have to see how he goes. And obviously DCL, we'll have to see how they go and if they stay fit. Yes, all that's true. But is it actually as bad as we've made out? And this is like the worst window ever, like I've heard some people say. I honestly just don't think it is. And I was looking at why that is. And I think one of the main reasons why we've sort of talked about this all window is the comparison, obviously, to Sunderland that we've had. That has been a comparison. Because Sunderland have had, by far, they've had an outstanding winner, as we all know. They've had probably a 9.5 out of 10 window. But if they hadn't had that window, and say Sheffield United had won the playoff final, who we know, with their financial accounts, wouldn't have been in the same they wouldn't have had the same allowance to spend on FFP, like obviously Sunderland were able to, and the wiggle room would have been nowhere near as much, and they would have probably had a window similar to potentially Burnley. If Sheffield United had won that playoff final, I honestly think, me included and the rest of the whole Leeds sphere, would genuinely believe that this wasn't as bad a transfer window. It's because we've constantly compared to Sunderland, but we can't really compare to Sunderland because they've got so much more PSR wiggle room. I mean, they've got that much wiggle room. They've spent 180 million this summer, and they could still have spent more. That's how much wiggle room they've got because they weren't carrying losses. They've sold Bellingham, they've sold Watson, and yes, we could have sold more. I agree with that, and I'm not saying that we did everything right. I'm just saying, in another scenario, I honestly believe that as I said, if Sunderland hadn't come up with us and Sheffield United had won that playoff final, which obviously we've got to play against Sunderland now, and that's how it is. There's no getting around this. But if they'd have won that playoff final, Sheffield United for me would have had nowhere near the window that Sunderland had, and I actually think we'd look on it as a much better window than we're probably looking at it now, because obviously one of our main competitors coming up has obviously had such a great window. So I think we've got to bear that in mind, because I honestly think that's the case. Because when you look, as I said, when you look at that team, is it really that awful? Really? Maybe you guys think it is. I honestly think that's going to be quite a competitive squad in the Premier League. But obviously there is massive question marks. I think the main question marks for me are, can we keep the forward line fit? That's going to be the main question marks. Anyway, this isn't all positive though, because as I said, we've come in with a bit of positivity. We've talked for about 14 minutes about positivity, but we now need to move on to a few negatives, in my opinion. And I still look at the leadership group at Leeds United right now and think there is weakness there. I still think there is, because regardless of what we think, and regardless of how they've performed in this transfer window, there is a lack of experience in that leadership team, as we all know. They're all on higher roles than ever done before, which, under any circumstances, is a lack of experience. Now, if that lack of experience is actually causing us to have a bad window, or cause us to have a bad window, or will continue to cause us to have problems at Leeds United, is another debate completely, because it might not do. But the matter of the fact is they are inexperienced. That we cannot hide from that, regardless of anything else. Let me move it back onto the window as well. But that's going to be the way it is. So for me, I would still like to see, in a perfect world, someone come in a bit more experienced to run this club. Because the problem I've got is at the moment, and I think this is what's happened, is the longer it's gone on since Paraag's come into the club, I think the more big decisions and football decisions he's had to make, which is what my worry is. And he's not Paraag isn't a football man. So when he's picking football people, when he isn't a football man himself, it's hard to pick someone. Like for me, say if I took over as a business running the NFL, because I don't understand the NFL, I would struggle to make them decisions. You can get off what they seem like in an interview and how they talk and what their plans are, but you don't actually know. And Paraag, when he's appointing these people, doesn't actually know what he's looking for because he's never been in football before. So I think that's something to bear in mind. And I think we need someone right at the top of the club. Maybe I'd love Daniel Levy to come to Leeds right now. That people are going to go, that's mental. But I'd love him because someone right at the top who has run a club, who's took a club over in Spurs and got them to where they are now. And bear in mind, obviously the last few years for Spurs have been pretty horrendous, as we all know. Not horrendous in terms of they just won a Europa League last year for the record. But when he took over Spurs, they're in such a different dimension to what they're in now than what we all know from Spurs. They were a team that were just completely mid-table in the Premier League. And now he's managed to get them with some of the highest revenues in the league, a brand new stadium. I know people might not want a new stadium at Leeds, and we can just upgrade Elland Road, but he's managed to do that. They've modernised the whole club. They've got the best training ground. They've got the best stadium in Europe as well. But he's now he's worked in football for over 25 years. Someone like that to oversee operations and not even to do loads every single day, but just to appoint the correct people for certain roles, I think will be valuable for this Leeds United setup right now, in my opinion. Like I look at some of the best run clubs in the country, and you look at Brighton, for example. They are owned by Tony Bloom, who has got a sporting background. He's a sporting bettor. That's why he's made his money. So for me, I would honestly love, it'd be nice to have someone right at the top who is a proper football person, like we've seen with Brighton, where they've got, obviously, Tony Bloom, who, as I said, has worked in football. You could also look at Brentford, who I think have got a guy called, Matthew Benham at Brentford, who's also from a betting background. And they're some of the best run clubs in the country. So I think it's nice to have him. Do you think Leeds would be an attractive move to Levy? Probably not. I actually don't think you want to be involved in football at all. But I'm not saying we should go get Levy. I'm just saying it's an example of someone that you could get who doesn't have to work daily, but someone really, really high up at the club who can make decisions and appoint people for correct roles. Because I just worry about. I think Paraag's ambitious. I think he has probably got the best clubs right now, the best sort of thing for the club at heart. I think that's all true. I genuinely believe that, by the way. But I wonder on his skill set in terms of actually being able to point people for certain roles at Leeds United. I genuinely worry about that. Like, how does he know that Robbie Evans is a good CEO for a football club? He might know he's a good CEO in general for a banking firm. But how does he know he's a good CEO for football? What experience has Paraag got to make that call? And that's why it'd be nice to have someone overseeing it. And I always say this, like, when people ask me sort of, if you could take anyone from Liverpool, who would it be? I would always take Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes, who were there too. I think Michael Edwards is behind the scenes, but really high up. And obviously Richard Hughes, I'd take them over any playing squad. Maybe right now you'd take Alexander Isak and Van Dijk to make sure we don't go down. But over a long period of time, having a Richard Hughes or a Michael Edwards at Leeds United would do far more than any playing staff that you've currently got on your team, because of what they can actually bring in terms of making the right signings, in terms of running the club properly, selling properly, all that sort of stuff. It's so important to have really top people at the top of your club. And I just still worry about our staff at Leeds United. I liked it when we had Nick Hammond there, etc. I think there was obviously and we saw that with the success that the likes of Nick Hammond had in the transfer window. But I think since he's left, I still do worry how experienced we are at the top of the club. Are you excited about the new set-piece coach coming in? Imagine we turn into Arsenal set piece. I'm really excited. I did a bit on the start of the video. I can't believe we haven't had one, because these are the sort of things that we need in football now. Every single detail gets looked at. I mean, even look at sort of what Newcastle are doing at the moment, and every club's doing, where as soon as the game kicks off now, they punt it into the corner, which is something Bielsa actually used to do way back in the day and got ridiculed for it. But now every single team from a kickoff always puts the ball right into the opposition corner to get the press on straight away, and to sort of put them sending them backwards straight away into their corner. And every single detail has to be sort of done to a fine-tooth comb. And Leeds bringing a set piece when we've got a massive team, which we know we have, is fantastic, and it should have been done last season, to be honest. But I'm just so glad we've got one now. So yeah, really happy with that. Be quirky. I think that's fantastic. Vital nowadays, it's very good. It's a very good move from the club. Yeah, I completely agree. The set piece coach thing's fantastic. I think it really is really good, and a really positive step for Leeds United as well, which is fantastic. But yeah, that's my thing about Leeds United right now. We've had one window under this ownership, which I think started particularly well, and then it's not into the ownership, because obviously the 49's own the club, but in terms of this new management team that we've got, and I think we have seen flaws in what we've done in the window. So for me, I would just like to see someone right at the top to come in and sort of oversee it, who's been involved in football for a long period of time now. That's what I would like personally. So yeah, I just think that's something to bear in mind. And I think that's something that if I'm Paraag, I think I've got to look at. I really think I've got to look at that. Anyway, the final thing I want to mention about a transfer window, and then we'll move on. Well, hang on a minute. We've got a message from Will Grant. Will Grant said, if we had another 100 million, we would not be having this conversation. The club, the only thing the club did wrong this transfer window was we did not have enough money to get our targets. See, I disagree, Wilf. I think that the only thing we did wrong this window wasn't just the PSR headroom. We know we had 100 million. Everyone in the club will have known we had 100 million in sort of expenditure this summer. The issue was for me that we've not prioritised the correct positions. We've bought backups when we didn't need to buy backups, in my opinion, and we've spent the money in the wrong areas at times. I don't hate any of the signings. I just think we've spent the money in the wrong positions, and I think it's easy to just say, "Oh, it's PSR's fault." By the way, I hate the idea that Leeds United come up and we can only lose 61 million quid. I can't stand it. I can't believe that that's even a rule. How that gets passed that's a rule? Well, it obviously gets passed because the Premier League clubs vote on this stuff. And you've got to have 14, and they're all going to vote it because they want to keep themselves in the Premier League, which I get. But it's an absolute joke that we've only got that wiggle room. However, if we think that that's the only thing they've done wrong this window and they can't control it, I think that's a bit... I just disagree personally, as I said. And that moves on to my next point, which is that I'm actually convinced, that they wanted to sell Strout this summer. Because if you look at the squad makeup, what we've done right now, why on earth, if we've got a player that's there who is pure profit... We've got a player with pure profit in Pascal Strout, and we've also got Rodon, and we've then this window we spent 18 million on Biol and we spent 5 million on Bornau. Why that wouldn't make any sense? Because Biol's going to be a starter, you think, at some point. Rodon's going to be a second choice. They're going to be a second two, and if they're not, and it's going to be Strout, and it's going to be Strout, and it's going to be Rodon, then why on earth have we bought two backup centre backs? Why have we done that? Why have we spent over 20 million pounds? Why have we bought Biol? For me, in the squad makeup, with the amount of money we have on PSR, it should have been either Biol or Strout. You can't have both. You can't, because either you're wasting money on Biol because he's going to be on the bench and you need to prioritise starters over bench players, or alternatively, you're going to bench Strout, who you could sell for over 20 million pounds probably, and be a PSR sale. So how we've ended up with both Biol and of course Strout suggests to me that there's been a bit of confusion there, and I actually suggest when I look at it again and look at it, we definitely wanted to sell Pascal Strout this summer, because I would rather put Biol in the starting 11, sell Strout, and have that extra 20 odd million quid. Say we got 25 million for Strout, use that to buy a right winger. I think that would be a better makeup. What would you guys rather? Strout on the bench for 25 million quid, and then I know we need depth. By the way, I know we need depth, but you've got to have a starting 11 first, and then you work on your depth as well. But I agree, we need depth. PSV, but. PSF, should I say, not PSV. That's a Dutch team, football team. And then I get we need depth, but we don't need to spend that much money on depth. We could have kept Voba, for example, who we know has been okay in the Premier League before, as depth. We've got Bornau as depth, as centre-back. We didn't need to then go and spend another nearly £20 million or keep a player that you could sell for over £20 million on the bench for me when you're crying out for a right winger and number 10. So I actually think that the club were actively trying to sell Strout this summer, but I just don't think they've probably got the money that they wanted to. And I imagine that will come out in the flesh in a few days' time. I might be wrong, but I imagine it will do. Anyway, let's read some of your guys' comments. The 49ers have been in charge for 2 seasons, and they've got every major season right. I don't think we could want for better owners. We're a Premier League club because of them. I think we're a Premier League club, mate, because Bielsa got us promoted the first time, is my personal opinion, because he got us out of that cycle and got us up with a squad that should have never been promoted. It's easy when you've gone up then to go up again because you get your parachute payments. So that's my opinion a bit on that. However, they did get us promoted, and they have kept the promises in terms of that they're just going to spend every penny they have, and that is all true. But I don't think that they've been. For me, the last two windows we've had in the summer since they've come in, the first window really good, the second window really good, the third window, the start of it good, the second half of it poor, and they've let us down in the final third, in my opinion, still, because I think they could have done things. I know we've only got 100 million, but I think they could have done things to work on it. Could we have sold an asset in the club? Could we have sold our women's team? I know our women's team is different to other women's teams because we've only had it a few years, but could we have found ways to make some more money so we could spend a bit more, or not bought another centre back, or not bought Justin, or not bought Longstaff? I think there's things we could have done that for me would have been a bit better. Can you explain how Man United aren't breaking PSR? No trophies, so no prize money to the. To me, it's their global revenue, their only income, but they aren't selling crazy high. Yeah, the reason, be quirky, that Man United can spend so much is because they've got a 90,000 seat stadium. Their TV revenue is better than a lot of other teams as well, in my opinion. And the other reason is that that because they're so global, the shirt sales are through the roof. The deals that they do with sponsors are through the roof compared to any other club because there's more eyes on Manchester United. So everything is just exploded with Man United. I know they've had issues where they finished 15th last year, so there's been issues there. The playing squad, they've messed around for years. They've been poorly run, but they've still got a massive global fan base, regardless of what we think of them. That's creating that sort of money. But that's how. It is crazy though, without Champions League money, that they can spend what they can spend and not really ever sell. And when they do sell, not really sell for PSR profits. But it's because over years and years of winning trophies under the likes of Sir Alex, they've obviously built up such a fan base of Manchester United, regardless of what we think of them, that they now can spend. They can just go and spend because every deal that they do is massive. Bit much to say that they've got every decision right when they clearly haven't. This is in relation, obviously, to the 49ers. Excited our primary targets. Excited our primary targets terribly and didn't sell when we needed to sell. Yeah, I think what you're saying is that they didn't sell proper players, did they, this summer, Ruben? I think that's the truth of it. Jack says Meslier, Strauch, Nonto, Perot could have all been sold for me. Be in a much better position now. Yeah, Meslier is a pure profit player because we've had him for so long, so we could have sold him. And I think the club have actively tried to sell Meslier this summer. I know there was quotes from Robbie Evans the other day suggesting that sort of it was best for both parties we stayed. That is absolute PR nonsense. You do not believe a shred of that. There's absolutely categorically we were trying to get rid. We were 100% trying to get rid of the likes of Meslier. That's truth. It's just now he's staying. What else can they say? But yeah, Meslier could have gone. I agree. Strauch should have been sold. Nonto could have been sold. Perot's slightly different because we bought Perot for 16 million. So his book value this summer, based on his contract length, I think it's about £10 million, and I don't think we could have got much more for him. So we actually wouldn't have made tons of money on Perot anyway. But the best players of PSR, if you want a PSR sale in the current playing squad, are Bogle, because we bought him for 5 million, so his PSR value is for about 4 million, and you could get serious money for him because he's a good right back. And this has been mentioned as well. Tanaka, another one, if you wanted to get rid of them. I don't want to sell either of them two. And then you've got Nonto and Strout, they're the main ones. PSF, I keep calling you PSV, apologies about that. PSF says, you talk as if it's easy getting out of the Championship. Look at Ipswich, Sheffield. It's easy to get things wrong. The 49ers got it right. I completely agree. They did a good job. They said I did say this, PSF, for the record. The last two transfer windows before this window, they've done really well. And to get us out of the league is really hard work. I am not debating any of that. And this is why I don't even like when people slag Farke off and say, yeah, but it was easy to get promoted. It's never easy to get promoted. From the owners, from the playing squad, from who's managing the club. It's never easy to get promoted. So I do agree with you. So I don't quite know what you I sort of quite know your point there. That's what I think. PSF, you're talking about the past and not the present. Yeah, to an extent, but he's right in terms of it's not easy to get out of the Championship, to be fair. Jack says, with them four, that's around 70 million, you'd have thought. Yeah, potentially, which is you could wiggle room. But But as well, it was mentioned in Graham Smith's Inside Elland Road today, or yesterday, that his sort of newsletter. It's a paying thing, and I pay it, because I want as much information as possible. But he suggested that Daniel Farke had picked out 5 players this summer that he wouldn't, that he's told the board they cannot sell under any circumstance. And I would imagine some of them are on there. I think that, in my opinion, the 5 were probably Joe Rodon, Bogle, Ampadu. I'd imagine Tanaka's probably one of them. And then potentially, I'm not sure on the 5th one. I think they're the first 4, Ampadu, Tanaka, Bogle and Rodon. And potentially the 5th could be Dan James, but I'm not 100% sure on the 5th. Wilf said, we should have sold Strouk for 25 million. That would have given us 100 million more buying power, monetized over 4 years. Man United have hundreds of millions worldwide turnover. That's why no issue. Yeah, exactly. You're right on the Man United thing. The other thing, slightly correct, but not 100% correct. We couldn't. It depends how you do it, because if you're then putting 25 million on your books for the next few years, Wilf, then you are knackering yourself for summers to come. So I get what you're saying, but it's not quite 100% true. Ruben responded saying, they did a great job in the champ. You cannot say our recruitment window was perfect during this period. It's not whatsoever. I agree. I think they've done, for me, as I said, the 49ers, since they come in, the summer transfer window after they took over was a nightmare because they came in so late, which wasn't their fault. And they still managed to do a really good transfer window, as we know. The second summer, last summer, again, another brilliant transfer window. But the summer just gone, I think there is question marks over it, personally. B. Cookie says, there is still a chance Melonsley goes. This is true. This is absolutely true. The Turkish window is still open. Might give us a smaller budget for Jan. I agree with you, B. Quirky. Although, when I listened to Robbie Robbie Evans' comments, obviously the Leeds managing director the other day, when he said that Meslier, it was best for both parties if he stays. I don't think he'd stay that if he knew he was going to go, or there was a chance he was going to go, to be honest. I think he's going to stay, to be honest, Meslier. I think with Meslier, what it is he's probably not getting we've got him on good money now. We're back in the Premier League. He'll be on a really good wage. He's got 1 year left on his contract. And I think he looks at it and thinks, I'll sit at Leeds for a year, not play, because he ain't going to play at all. And then next summer he can leave for free and get a big payday. I think that's sort of what it is. And I also think potentially as well, when he's a free and people don't have to pay a transfer fee for him, obviously he might get better offers as well. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. Mark said, I have sympathy for Evans. A lot of criticism aimed at him based on him backing the current options and saying they're good enough. That's exactly what you have to do. Yeah, I know, but I agree with you, Mark. I do agree. And whoever did that interview was always going to get battered. Like I said on this show a number of days before, as soon as the transfer window ended, I said on the show, everyone was desperate to hear from the 49ers about sort of the window and where it went wrong, where it went right. I didn't actually want to hear from him because I knew that the person that did it there was never going to be anything positive out of it, and it turned out to be that way. Although, to be fair, when I did my reaction yesterday to it, I think there was positives and there was negatives in there, and I was glad he sort of told us that they had basically spent all the money they could, because I'd have been frustrated if they hadn't done that. 49ers haven't done that bad this window. Just wish they'd have done a bit more in the final few touches to get 2 more players. Yeah, I agree. Although for me, as I said, it would still probably even out to a 5. Ruben says, this is what happens when you don't appoint a proper director of football with links in Europe. We had no agent links and now we have to battle for draws. Baffles me that the fans are saying the 49ers have, I presume they're saying haven't failed. Yeah, that's something I mentioned. I don't know if I was the first to say it, but I didn't see anyone say it at the time. But I mentioned probably about a week ago now, that I worry that Underwood particularly, who obviously was our sporting director this summer, doesn't have the links that the Sunderland guys call like Jalosh, also I can't whatever he's called. The Sunderland guys work for not for Napoli, for Roma, a couple of other clubs in Europe. And I said about a week ago that I'm worried that he hasn't got the connections in Europe. And it seems like I think people have sort of, not that I was the one that said it and all first, but I think that's obviously become a bigger thing in the last few days with other people saying it as well. So yeah, I agree. I think that has been a bit of a problem. And I don't quite think that Paraag has thought that through fully, personally. I think we'll finish top 10. That's why I have a different take on our squad than most fans. Well, as I said, PSF, if we finish top 10, mate, then you're absolutely bang on with everything you've said, basically. I just personally don't think we will finish top 10. But if I did, as I said, if you're saying we are going to finish top 10, then your point stands completely. Ruben says, being been perfect. Sorry to dig you out, PSF, but I don't get you thinking. Past success, yes, this window is a bit of a mess. I think he's sort of cleared that up anyway, of course. Jack says, the league is far too strong to even think about top half this season. I'd take 17th this year. Yeah, no, I think the consensus amongst a lot of Leeds United fans, obviously PSF slightly different, is that 17th would be an outstanding position. If we don't get relegated, that would be outstanding for me. That would be an absolutely outstanding season for me. Which sounds bizarre because we're trying to be the 4th worst team in the division. But as I said, it's not about how good we are. It's just about not being the worst first 3, innit? They won't have any. John says they won't have any choice not to do so. January transfer window will be very important. It will be. The issue is we ain't got any money, so it's going to be either we have to buy players and then sell before the June or the July PSR deadline, or alternatively we have to sell in January. So it's going to be it's going to be a sell to buy basis, I think. There's a few people laughing at PSF thinking we're going to reach top 10. People are going to have different takes, people. That's sort of how it's going to be. I agree with you guys. I don't think we are going to be at top 10, but, there we are. I didn't think we were going to get top 10, to be fair, when Bielsa first took us over. Although, obviously, I think we all agree Bielsa's a far better coach than Daniel Farke. Anyway, let's move on to the next bit of the conversation. Let's have a look at the playing squad. Now, I've showed this team, obviously, earlier in the video. And I sort of want to talk not just about the team that we've got, obviously, appearing on my left-hand side for you, or right-hand side, one of the sides. But what I want to talk about more is that talk a bit more about the formation situation at Leeds United, because I've seen a lot of talk today talking about a 5-back. For me, with a 5-back, I will always say this: if you're playing with a 5-back, you're always short somewhere. You're either short out wide. If you're sort of going with a 2 in midfield, if you're going with a 3 in midfield and then you're going 2 up front. So if you're playing a 3-2, you're always short out wide, because who marks their fullbacks? This has been always the problem with the 5-3-2 for me. And we saw this with England when Southgate did it. Say you're playing against Liverpool, we won't even use Liverpool. Say you're playing against. No, let's just use Liverpool for the example. It doesn't really matter. It could change depending on whoever we're playing. But say we play Liverpool and we play 5-3-2. Who marks Frimpong and who marks Kirkes? I know this is a really basic point, but constantly we're going to have one wide man in Bogle on one side and Gudmundsson on the other, and they're going to have 2. They're going to have the wingers in Salah and Gakpo, whoever it is playing the left-hand side, and we're going to have 1. And you're constantly outnumbered out wide. That's always the issue. The other thing I've got with a 5-back is, for me, you only play a 5-back when you're playing against 2 up front. I don't really see the point when they're playing 1 up front to go 1 versus 3 on a striker. I just don't. I think you're better used with players in different positions. And the other way of doing it as well, the other thing I'd say about a 5-back is, if you go for a sort of a 5-2-3, where you've got your 2 midfield players and your wingers, my feeling with that formation is that then you're going to be outnumbered in midfield, because everybody plays, basically every team plays with a 3 in midfield. If Leeds then play with a 2 in midfield, when we're already struggling in midfield, we are going to get outnumbered in midfield, and we're going to get battered in the midfield for me, and then we're going to get turned over. So I don't like the 5-back formation for that, really. The other thing with the 5-back as well is that we haven't got a 5-back specialist in our dugout. We've got Daniel Farke, who is a 4-2-3-1 man. He is not a 5-back specialist at all. And the last time I think he played it, he lost 7-0. So, but that's not that can happen. Obviously, you can lose games. Everyone knows. But as I said, the 5-back for me, the only way a 5-back would work is if we appointed, we're not going to appoint Oliver Glasner, but say we appointed Glasner, who obviously plays a 5-back. He plays like a 5-2-3 almost, or a 5. It's like a 5-2-2-1 with up front with your sort of number 10s. But if we played with or if it's more like a 3-4-3 really. But if we had a manager who was a 5-back manager, then yeah, let's go to a 5-back. We don't. We have a manager who's 4-2-3-1. That's his primary formation. And I think we've got a team to build around a sort of 4-2-3-1, or you could even go to a sort of 4-3-3, which obviously is a slight knockoff of a 4-2-3-1, but not miles off. But changing it up completely to a 5-back, I just don't really understand the rationale. When we're going to lose either out wide or in midfield, we're not playing against 2 up front, so we're going to have 1-on-3 for a striker versus centre-backs. We don't really need it, in my opinion. I just don't think it's the play, personally. John Pepper says 4-4-2. Again, if you play 4-4-2, though, obviously you're going to have wide men, which can help in the middle, naturally. But you are still going to be outnumbered then in your midfield, because most people play with a midfield 3. We're going to play with midfield 2, like there's going to be 2 centre midfield players in a 4-4-2. So I don't think that really works. I just prefer a 4-3-3. And when I look at the side we've got, I know I've got it set up here in a 4-2 in a 4-2-3-1. But if this team was say when we played a 4-2-3-1, I like that lineup. I think it works. I think people have sort of underestimated Tanaka's ability for me. Tanaka can play in the number 10 / sort of box crashing number 8, however you want to call it, role. I think he can do that. And I think stat next to him in the complete 8 role, with Ampadu in the 6, I think it's a strong midfield. And we saw against Everton that this midfield works. I thought it worked really well against Everton. So why we now change it up and go to a sort of 5-back and stuff, I just don't agree with. I don't think we need to do it. And we don't, as I said, we don't have the managers to do it either. He's not a 5-back manager. You need people who are sort of who are built for a 5-back, and managers that's their primary system. Like if we had the Wolves manager, then we potentially play a 5-back because that's his style. That ain't Farke's style. I think it'd be mad to go to a 5-back. I really would. It's an absolute specialist formation. We also don't have definite wing backs. Like I think Bogle actually and Gudmundsson would do a good job, but they're not actually like they haven't. I don't think they've really played wing back much in their life. I know Bogle played it a bit for Sheffield United, to be fair, but I find it odd how people say we've got no creation in this team. After 3 games, Stack is the second best creator in the league. I think he has created the second most chances, B Quirky, yeah. And we've had really hard games. Yeah, this is a point to mention, by the way. This is a point to mention because we've played in the first 3 games Arsenal, who are the best defence in the league, Newcastle, who probably will be top sort of 6 or 7 defence in the league, and I would expect Everton come the end of the season to be sort of top 6 or 7 defences, maybe definitely top 10 defences in the division. So we've played 3 teams for me who are in the top 10 defences in the league, and this is backed up by last year's statistics as well. So there is a point in that. Although for me, I still see a lack of creation personally in the team. Is my honest opinion. Be quirky. I know you're saying, and I get that, but like Wolves managed to score 2 past Everton. I know they lost the game, but they did score 2. As I said, so for me, when I look at sort of the best way we're going to play to get results, I want to see us in a sort of in a Daniel Farke 4-2-3-1, or if you want to go with a sort of a 4-3-3, maybe with Ampadu as the 6 and Tanaka and Stack as the midfield too, as both like box crashing 8s or box to box 8s. For me, either or is a really good option. But as I said, I just don't like the idea of a 5-back. I just don't see the rationale for it. I think the only reason you're doing it is because we've got 3 really good centre backs, which I get, but we don't need. If we've got good centre backs, we don't need 3 of them, do we? If they're some of our best players on our team, we don't need it. Jack says, I think it's more a profile that's missing. There are players that can create, but not a proper 10 is needed. Yeah, but a proper 10 is needed. Yeah, no, I agree, Jack. I think we do need a proper 10, and like a Gustavo Hamer would have been perfect for that, because actually he's not particularly awful defensively as well, which is quite nice. So that would have been a really nice option for Leeds, naturally, with a number 10. But yeah. West Yorkshire Retro Gamer says, I do, Mr. Lenz, first time catching you live. I think you're saying how do? Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, no, not so bad. What do you think, West Yorkshire Retro Gamer, about what formation would you play, mate? What would you go with? We've seen 4-4-2 in the chat. I don't really like the 5-back, but people have mentioned it, or the 3-back. What formation would you play out of curiosity? And would that be the team? If you're going to go with a sort of a 4-back as such, and you're going to go with a 4-2-3-1 or a sort of 4-3-3, what would you pick that team? I think the only question mark probably would be for me is it going to be James or is it going to be Nonto on the right hand side? But what I saw in the Sheffield Wednesday game, and admittedly it was poor opposition, but we did struggle that night regardless. Is that actually Nonto and Bogle have something going down that right hand side? I think they can make something work. And as I said, when I look at that team now, I don't know if you guys disagree. It doesn't look that bad. I honestly, genuinely don't think it's that bad. I think it's a decent side. I honestly think we can make something work with it. I really do. I think Calvert-Lewin will be a good signing. I know I was sort of unsure at first. I've sort of convinced myself he will be a good signing. It's just obviously he can stay injured. Okafor as well, I think, is a really good option for us on the left-hand side. Again, if he can stay injured, if he didn't stay injured. So I think we'll be all right. PSV, I keep calling you PSV, I'm so sorry. PSF says, I think we're unlucky not to score a couple against Newcastle. We had quite a few block shots. We did, but we only had one shot on target in the end, and it came in the 90th minute. So I think a 0-0 was probably a fair result in that game. Jack says 4-2-3-1 is the way. I agree. West Yorkshire Retro Gamer's come back, and he says, I'm old school, but I'd love to see a 4-4-2 with who I think a 4-3-3 in possession and a 4-5-1 out of possession seems to be the preferred idea. Yeah, I think you're right. For me, that's what I would go with. I'm happy with in a 4-3-3, which will naturally drops into a sort of 4-5-1 out of possession, obviously with the two wingers dropping back. Call me Olive, by the way. Does he call me Olive? Oh, Clive, not Olive. Sorry about that. Call me Clive, by the way. West Yorkshire Retro Gamer is a mouthful, lol. I shall remember that, Clive. I shall remember that. But yeah, no. I think, as I said, I think we've obviously been negative about the transfer window. And I think part of the transfer window, when I look back at it as well, is that it's not about what we've bought. It's about what we haven't bought, really, that I think people are annoyed about. I don't think that people are not annoyed about the signs we've made. I think it's the signs we haven't made that people are frustrated with. And I also think, as I said, on top of that, it's also part and parcel because of what Sunderland done this window. But as I said, when we get to the end of the window, I look at that 11 right now. I think it's a decent 11. I think it's a decent 11, people. I do think it's a decent 11. My issue is obviously the depth. Like, if we were to lose DCL up front and Metcha, we'd be in trouble. And the reason I say both of them, people go, well, they're not going to lose them both, is that they have both obviously got quite strong injury records. So I think that could happen. And if that was to happen, obviously I think that naturally would be an issue. But I honestly don't think it's that bad. Clive says, I started as a retro content creator and then branched out into talking about Leeds United too. There's a lot of us now, isn't there? Yeah, I agree. It's what we didn't do, not what we did do. Yeah, I think that's a lot of people. PSF says it's a decent squad. No, I agree. As I said, in the comparison to the Norwich thing, which, as I said, for people who didn't see at the start, Norwich's 11 when they last played a 5-back, I think, was Tim Krul in goal, Max Aarons at right back, Kabak, Hanley, Gibson, Giannoulis, McLean, Norman, Lees Malou, Pookie and Sargent. So, like that is way worse than what we've got right now. Mark says 5-4-1 is probably the best way to get points in my opinion, or at least a system to test. I disagree. I don't think we need three. Why do we need three centre backs? Unless we're playing against two up front, which you never really do now. Everyone really plays with a one up front. Why do we need to go 1 versus 3 on a striker? I don't think we need to do that. I really don't think we need to do that. And also we'll get out Fox in the midfield as well. And I think in a 5-4-1, the other issue is it's so hard to score goals in a team that can't create at the moment as well. I just don't think we need to do that. Sebastian says, do you expect Leeds will surprise with a creative free agent to keep the fans quiet? No, I don't think they will. Robbie Evans said that we're not going to do one. I think he's probably right. I don't think we will. I mean, he's the managing director, so probably definitely know more than I do. But I don't think we will. I also don't. In the free agent market, because I've got a few things to mention about the free agents, which will probably get knocked into tomorrow's show now. And I've also got some comments about Daniel Farke as well, which will probably be in tomorrow's video. So if you want to hear about that, probably better. But as I said, yeah, for me, no, I don't think they will do. And I don't want them to either. Brownhill's too expensive in terms of a wage bill. If he was for 40 grand a week, we'll go get him. He's not. He wants 100. He's off to Al Shabab or whatever. So forget about him. Ericsson, off the ball work. He's like playing without someone, and we're not good enough to carry a sort of luxury player in the team, and that's what we'd be doing with Ericsson, and we can't afford to do it. He's off the ball work's not good enough. Ziyech, again, off the ball work for me, not good enough, and I don't really think there's anyone else that's that obvious. So no, I don't think we will do. Wolf says, I think we'll be okay once DCL starts scoring. DCL's really good with his head, so hopefully with the new set-piece coach, he could get a few goals this season. Yeah, I completely agree. And also we need to start crossing the ball in for him, don't we, as well, naturally. Jack says, to play devil's advocate, the Norwich squad from 5 years ago now, the league is ridiculous in terms of quality now. Yeah, no, I did say, yeah, I agree. And yeah, I agree. I think I said that earlier in the video, that the only issue is that naturally the league's got much better. Clive said, I'd only consider 5 at the back against top 4 teams. But again, if you're playing it, say we go to Arsenal. Say we went to Arsenal. Obviously, we got beat 5-0 and we did a lot of things wrong in that game. We obviously put Paraag up front, which I think was a bad call, etc., etc. But say we went to a 5-4-1 against Arsenal. In midfield, then, we'd have 2 in midfield up against their 3 in midfield. They'd have, what? Declan Rice, Zubimendi, and Odegaard, who they played in that game, in midfield. With our 2 midfield, we're going to get absolutely drilled in the midfield. I just don't see it. I'd much rather play a 4-5-1 than a 5-4-1, which, as I said, if you're playing a 4-3-3, it's very easy to drop into that out of possession. West York, I keep calling West Yorkshire game and Clive, but Clive says, but again, one more in the midfield is expected to drop into the defence out of possession anyway. Still there you are, exactly. PSF says, what I like about the 49ers is they take tough decisions and not swayed by the fans. Fair enough, fair enough. And you do need some people at the top of the club that are going to make the tough decisions for sure. And I think they were prepared to do that with Sales as well, from what we've heard from journalists. So yeah, I think you're right on that. I think you are right on that. But yeah, for me, as I said, that's a competitive squad, I think. I do think it is. I still think it's going to be difficult, but I think it's a competitive squad. Anyway, I think I'm probably going to wrap it up there. If there's any more questions, just quickly fire them in. If not, I will wrap up the show, because we have been going for about 50-odd minutes now, I think. Mark says, 5 at the back would allow Bogle and Gudmundsson to get forward more and deliver natural crosses to DCL. Then you can bring on Nonto and Okafor against... Presumably, you mean tired legs. Also makes you better threat from set plays. So what would be your 4 in midfield then, if you're going to do that? That's my issue. Who's the 4 in midfield if Okafor and thing are going to play off the bench? We're not playing 4 centre mids in midfield. We're not that bad. Like, we've got players of quality. We don't need to do that. We're never going to score. We're just never going to score if we do that. Ruben Rules says, I think it has to be a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. That's it. Agreed. Clive says, quick question, what's your name, lol? My name's Scott. Yeah, that's my name. B Quirky says, love the content, bud. Thank you very much, mate. But yeah, let's wrap it up there anyway, because I'm scared that we're going to end up going around in circles a bit as well. But yeah, thanks all for watching, as always. I hope you enjoyed the show. Obviously, it was me, Scott, hosting, naturally. And yeah, if you are watching live now and you're not subscribed, if you could, that would be fantastic. We've just, in the last sort of like this week, gone over the sort of 1,000 subscriber mark. So if you could keep me on that, keep me clocking over, that would be fantastic. Clive says, cheers, Scott. Mr. Lens seems to be too formal, lol. Yeah, definitely too formal. Take care. Catch you next time. Thank you very much. But yeah, thanks all for watching, as always. And I will see you tomorrow when we talk, because we've got some things that are going to go into tomorrow's show now, which is we're going to talk about Daniel Farke tomorrow, which I think is hotting up. So yeah, let's get into that, because there has been some quotes from Barry Cross regarding that. So yeah. Anyway, but that's for tomorrow's show. See you all later, everybody. Bye for now. Bye for now.